Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Tassaniki, and this video is going to show us going to Prague and doing quite a lot of bead shopping as well as being tourists. So I always try to record a little bit of just driving along so you can see the scenery, and then I also recorded once we got into town. I really loved how colorful the buildings were. They were bright colors. I don't know what part of town we drove through, maybe kind of like the southern end of Prague to get to our hotel. And one of the first things we did after we checked in was headed over to the Prague TV Tower. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called, but it'll show you here in a little bit. It was described as being an architectural feat. Just this amazing, really cool, fun shaped tower and really high up off the grounds. Well, not as high as other buildings, as you will see, but a fun experience. They had a couple different art exhibits up in this particular area, and the building also has, I think, one or two cafes. And so it was a really cool thing just to be able to like be up so high and be able to see so much of the city. It was really interesting to see that all of the buildings were built in such a way that the interior of the entire block could still be like trees or green spaces. So here you can see that the building is called the Prague TV Tower, and it is shorter than the Eiffel Tower. Still kind of a height issue for me. I don't necessarily love heights, so it was kind of, I don't want to say scary, but certainly I had to just remind myself like we are, we're fine. It's not that nothing's gonna fall through, the windows aren't gonna break, that kind of a thing, that kind of a reminder. So yeah, you can see really far. I can't remember how far out they said you could see, but I just really liked looking down and being able to see what the interior of the buildings look like. A lot of these buildings are housing with stores or shops on the ground level floor, but you can see that there's trees on the interior. A couple of them had what looked like maybe small playgrounds or parks. They had walking paths. So here's one of the art installations, April Popko. She also had several paintings hung up. The paintings were for sale, and we misunderstood what the signs said because they did say that you could check with the front desk to see how much they would cost. But when we asked the front desk, they had no idea. So we had a good time just kind of spending time up here, looking around. We looked on all the sides and just looked through the windows to see what we could see of the city. Once we got out of there, we walked down, and this is the back of a church. It just looked really pretty. There's a playground also in the same area. And so it was kind of loud with like little kids playing and stuff like that. That was really fun. The next day, after we had breakfast, we actually drove out to another city called Jablonec. You can look this up. The Jablonec is known for the place where beads are made. Czech Republic is very well known for glass and beads, and we had a nice drive out to Jablonec. I think it was about an hour, maybe hour and a half outside of Prague. It was a really nice day. We had a nice visit while we were there, actually. It was chilly and cool. And on the way back, we actually had some snow, which you'll be able to see in a little bit. But we just drove out because we were trying to go to, I think we ended up at 4 different stores. We went to one factory, and then we went to 3 stores. One of the stores had a museum. That was really cool to see because it just really gave you the history of beads in the Czech Republic, or kind of beads in general, with most of it being specifically about beads in the Czech Republic. We use seed beads in our project, although I do have other beads because of making jewelry in the past. I haven't really made a lot of jewelry lately, but we did buy some things, so we'll see what I come up with in the next few months of being able to just kind of use my creativity in this new way. We had a nice drive. It was really a lot of forest and trees. And here we are driving into the town of Jablonec itself. Nice little town. What can I say? I mean, I think it was pretty small. Some of the buildings kind of looked like they needed some work. There was some like construction going on in other parts of town that we passed by. Lots of apartment buildings, lots of like small town, small village kind of thing. We saw a group of kids walking around, like school age kids with an adult, maybe like a field trip or end of year field trip or something like that. Here we are driving up to one of the places. This is G&B Beads, and the white building that you see right there is the store slash factory slash museum. It was really amazing. So check this out, G&B Beads. This is what you see right when you walk in, and here's the store. It is a store. They do have tons and tons and tons of beads for sale. They have everything hung up by color family. So that was really interesting because it was just by color family. And then within that, it had different shapes of beads. They also had already made jewelry on the shelves or you can see them like the necklaces and stuff hanging up right there. And it was just amazing. It was so freaking cool to be able to see all of this. Here's where you get a lot of close-ups of seed beads, tiny packages, tiny packages. So the problem with this is that none of them were labeled. You could not say like, oh, this is a size 10, this is an 11. You can tell if you are somebody who uses the beads, you're able to tell what the sizes are. So we, for the most part, were able to figure it out. But it was kind of odd to have so much selection and just not have anything labeled. They didn't even have prices on them. The prices were on a sign on the side. So G&B has a museum upstairs, upstairs from their shop that they have where they show the history. Here is a bunch of glass rods leaning up against the wall, and it talks about how the rods were made and who made them, who produced them, how long they've been in production. And it was one, oh, well, let's see, what size room would this be? Maybe like a medium-sized room. It was not a really big space, but it had a lot of really cool information, and it had all of these older machines set up. These are not used anymore, but they had everything set up, including having, like on that first machine right there with the yellow glass rods, they had the glass set out kind of to show you like this is what would be done at each station. So that was really cool to see. And they also had on the side in this part of the video, in the front at the left side, like where that open door is, they do have a little bit of work being done right there. I don't know what the gentleman was doing to the beads. Maybe he was baking them, but we didn't get to go look, and we only got to have access to this museum part right here. And so the seed bead information was really interesting. It talked about how, I think it said only about 50% of seed beads are sold on hanks anymore. And that's definitely a truth compared to when I was a kid. I remember purchasing beads on strings, and nowadays it seems like so much more is just loose beads. And that's because they can't find people to string them. That's one of the main reasons. So they had really cool information here with all these different bead cards and things available. I think Jablonec is also one of the places that has the most amount of rosaries produced and sold. Afterwards, we went to lunch, and we had definitely a very hearty meal. It was like a meat and a potato and a vegetable. So we kind of laughed about how hearty the meal was, considering all we were doing was kind of walking around town and doing some bead shopping. I really like that we ended up driving through a forest. We went to the Preciosa factory. They have a tiny, tiny shop. Here we are walking up to the front. This is a main producer of seed beads. And so it was so exciting to get to come here and shop. And here are the trays that the seed beads were in. And nothing labeled. You just had to kind of purchase them. And some did have stickers on for other websites, for other places, because Preciosa does not sell directly themselves. They sell through distributors. And so here was the storefront. They just had tiny little 25-gram bags. And we ended up purchasing quite a lot of seed beads because we had access to the larger bags from the bins that I showed you in the back. Plus, we had access to these smaller ones. But we bought quite a bit because the price was just a really good price for purchasing directly from the factory. There's my son. He fell asleep because it had been a long day at that point. We had a great, amazing time at this. It was so cool to be able to go to the factory. I've been buying seed beads since I was a kid. This is what all native beaders use. They had this amazing thing to use to measure the seed beads. I'm trying to look for this. I cannot find one. I need to find one. They had a cylinder here, like a big vase just filled up with beads too. It was really cool. We ended up being here right when they were closing, and they were definitely like, hey, you got to hustle up. This is a different shop. This is a store in town, and they just had open bins of beads. It was really interesting to see. I've never seen this kind of this kind of way that beads are sold. It was amazing. You can see they have really huge scoops too. So I don't know what people are buying. I don't know any of that stuff, but this was just a regular store. This was not the factory, which was, I think, an interesting thing to notice. Because you could not go to all the different factories. I think you can go to a couple of them. And of course, we are not, we're not wholesalers. We're not looking for beads to be able to purchase on that kind of level. And so we just didn't have access to that. I know that there are a lot of bead tours. You can Google, you can look it up to find bead tours specifically for Prague and for Jablonec, to go check them out. And I think if you did something like that, you would be able to have access to the factories. I don't know how much you'd be able to purchase, although I assume that they'll purchase to you if they're letting you come see them. Maybe it's just like some kind of a deal, but we had emailed a couple different places that we found online, and no one had storefronts, which I thought was really interesting that they don't have storefronts, but they're still selling. Just a typical thing for nowadays, I suppose. We ended up shopping at 4 places, including the Preciosa store factory. So that was amazing. It was so cool. And when we drove back to Prague, we drove through a little bit of snow. That was kind of fun because in Prague, it had just been like the weather you saw earlier, where it was nice. It's been like chilly or cool, but it was like a nice, kind of spring day, making that transition away from winter. But here we had a little bit of snow just on the drive back, maybe not even for that long, maybe like 15 minutes is all. And it didn't stick for us. I'm not sure if it stuck in Jablonec or any of those other little small towns that we passed through. We ended up driving back to Prague, and we had a really nice drive. We had a really fun visit. We also did some tours, and not some tours. We did a tour. We always try to do the big red bus tours that you can do in cities. And so I'm glad that I did a bunch of recording just from the car when my husband was driving, because as you're going to see here coming up, the stuff that I got from the big red bus tour is just not great. It's not amazing. Here we go. Big red bus tour, reflection, dirty window. I was really disappointed and frustrated with this tour because they seemed to only have a couple of double-decker buses, and we could not figure out when the buses were going to come back and be at those stops that we were at. So this is one of the first stops, and we actually got off on the first stop and walked down because we wanted to go to the main Preciosa store in Prague. Preciosa makes glass, and so they make vases and chandeliers and stuff like that. They don't allow recording in the store, which I did not know until we were about to leave. So I did get this super fast, quick recording of this like waterfall kind of thing with their crystals. And that's it, because it was just not allowed. We walked around Old Town area and we found a little shop that had these, I think they're called chimneys. Other people have said they're called chimneys. So what it is dough, specifically in this kind of, I guess it's kind of like a chimney, like a upside down, not even upside down, sorry, in just this like triangle cone shape. And it spins around and it cooks. And once it's done cooking, they take it out and they roll it in sugar. You can see those ones on the left are already finished and they're cooling off. They've already been rolled in sugar. So here she'll put one, roll it in sugar, and then get it off of the cone. And it'll sit there and steam until it's cooled off and ready to be filled up. We each ordered one and they're definitely humongous. These were like just huge dessert things. And so I think I recorded her. Yeah, I recorded her filling one of them. This might be mine. I think I got, nope, this is my husband's maybe, because he got wild berry. And so a couple pieces of fruit and then the cream filling and then whipped cream on top. But the whipped cream was disappointing because I don't know, sometimes maybe it's a German thing. It doesn't have a lot of sugar, so it's not nearly as sweet as you think it is, which is fine. Like it doesn't have to be sweet, right? It's just like a cream versus like a super sugary whipped cream, but they were humongous and we could not finish any of them. So here we are back on the bus and we are headed to the Prague Castle. I know that the bus stop is coming up. I think it's right there where all those people are walking, but I was just irritated with this bus tour. It was a good tour. Overall, it was a really good tour. Here's the castle and the church. And very cool. Beautiful. Such a fun thing. A good tour to take. Like I do appreciate the big bus tours because you're able to see so much of a city and you're able to see all of like the main stops, like the main things that the castles and the churches and the old town and the town square and stuff like that. So it's a good thing to be able to use, and plus we basically end up using it for transportation as well. Although we drove to Prague, this meant that we didn't have to drive around the city and park and then get out and then park again and stuff like that. So this church was amazing. We did not get to go inside because seriously, the line wrapped around the building. I don't think I've seen a place like that filled up in, I don't even know. I mean, before COVID, it's been forever since I've seen that many people waiting to get into a place. Maybe it was that bad during like the Christmas markets last year. The detail on this was really pretty. It's a lot of gold, and then there's a painting, or maybe not a painting, maybe it's a fresco. I don't remember all the different terminology that you can use for the decorations that end up on churches, but it was really nice. We took some pictures, we walked around. They had local vendors, which was really cool because we got to buy some stuff. So we bought like some, what did we buy? We bought some earrings, we bought some bookmarks, we bought some snacks. They also had food available. So that was really good because I think at this point it was after lunch and we were kind of just snacking and grabbing like bites of stuff here and there because there's so many different vendors at different places. That's a really fun thing to do. We had the option to do a river cruise and did not take it. We only went for 4 days. And so that was like 1 day driving there, 2 days of hanging out, and then 1 day having breakfast and coming back. So driving past the river and listening to what the Big Red Bus tour, what the tour guide said about it was kind of enough for this trip. Maybe if we go back, we'll do the river cruise. We do like doing the river cruises if the city has one. I think we've done it in other cities as well. So that's always really cool. And so again, you can see the reflection in the window because we could not catch up or we could not figure out that double-decker bus situation. So we had to stay on the regular bus. And of course, there's going to be reflections and whatever. Anyway, it didn't really ruin anything for us. I hope that you don't mind. It was a fun thing to be able to drive past. I know that we didn't do quote unquote everything that was available to us in Prague. But like I said, we were only there for a couple days and the one day we took to drive out to Jablonec to do our shopping. And then the next day was when we did the big red bus tour. I think probably my favorite thing to see was kind of like the people watching. Maybe that's, I don't know, maybe if, I don't know if you enjoy stuff like that, but I always like seeing what people wear and what they're carrying around with them. And the other thing that was really interesting about this trip is the number of tours that we saw. So many people were in the city doing tours. Really, everywhere we went, there was a minimum of like 4 or 5 at every single place because I don't know why. Well, I know that the Easter break, so we went right before Easter, and I know that Easter break was the time that Germans went on vacation. So I don't know if that was also the case for other people as well. You can see that I'm in the car. We're in the on the tour still, and we hit a little bit of traffic, so there was a little bit of like a slow part of the video right there. This was really, it's always hilarious to drive with bus drivers because I mean in these European cities, because first of all the streets are already narrow, like to begin with they're already narrow, then you add parking, and then sometimes the parking is like people will have a little bit of a bigger car, still a small European car, but like a bigger car. And the bus drivers have to just like squeeze past them. We had a couple of what I thought were going to be like, I thought that the bus driver was going to hit them. And I've never been with a bus driver that has hit anybody. So it's always super, super impressive to me. So nice tour, nice driving around. Really definitely recommend. I mean, big red bus tours are always a fun thing, I think. We ended up going to the mall and we got bubble tea. This was new to us, new company, new store or whatever. Not the best for sure. We got better bubble tea at a different place, but it worked. And then we went for a walk, and some store had a koi pond underneath it. We didn't go in the store because we were going somewhere else, but I thought that was really funny and interesting to see. Here is another, this is like a craft hobby store, and this is an actual store. This is not the factory or not a factory, but this was seriously tiny. This is like, this is small. This is like, I can't even describe to you how, well, look, you're going to see it right here. This is how big it was. That one aisle and this one aisle. And it's not even aisles, like one section and the other section. Super, super tiny places. So this is when we were getting ready to leave, and we drove back through town. When we left the hotel, we drove past the church that we stopped at the other night that you saw earlier in the video. And when we make the turn, you're going to be able to see the Prague TV tower. Doesn't that look cool? It was really cool to see that. And although, like I said, a little bit scary, really cool to be able to go up and check it out. We did not eat at the cafe. We ate next door to it at a different cafe, but they do have a cafe up on one of those levels. I'm not sure which level it is. And so here, let me just show you some of Prague. Here we are driving through town. At some point, I know we end up hitting a lot of red lights, so I stopped recording, but look at the colors of the buildings. I love it. I love that every building had a different color. There was some buildings that needed some work to be done, but I feel like for the most part, they all looked pretty decent. Dirty buildings notwithstanding, but they were really cool. They still have all the old, like, not statues, but what are they called? Like just whatever relief work is on them, and the really distinct design. And I was mentioning to my husband that I think it's really funny to live in Europe and to go to like these different places. And, these buildings have been around since X year, whatever year it is. And then on the bottom floor, it's like, here's Sephora and here's McDonald's and here's, Starbucks. And that's what it was like on that first stop that we got off the Big Red Bus tour. It was a big shopping area, while at the same time being like this older historical part of town. And so that's what it's like, I mean, that's how it is nowadays. But it's just really interesting to be able to see that together. We did also see quite a few Ukrainian flags hanging from windows, or I think we saw a couple in some storefronts as well. A lot of these, I don't know what some of the buildings were, but a lot of these buildings are going to be housing. So probably from the first or at least second floor up, it's going to be apartments. And then the ground floor is going to be some kind of shop. Maybe the first floor is going to be a shop or offices. But this is, I think, where we started hitting all the red lights until we got out of town. So I stopped, and we made one last stop before we truly left. We got parking at the National Theater parking garage, which was really super easy parking to be able to get into, and then go to this last bead shop that we wanted to check out. So there's a National Theater right there with the gold on the top right in front of us. I was really happy to be able to use their parking garage. I mean, nobody cares which parking garage you use, but it was just in a really good shape, really good place for where we wanted to be. So this is above the parking, right next to the actual building of the National Theater. There's National Theater right there. Looked so cool. I wish that we would have gotten pictures, or maybe not even pictures, but just like a video on the inside. Actually took this video when we were walking down the street, and then when we got back to the National Theater, we stopped again to take pictures with that statue and just another quick video. It was really a cool area. Just like super cool buildings, really cool. It was just like a really fun place to be. Here is us leaving town, and we had a great trip. We had a really quick trip. It was, like I said, 4 days. We'd like to go back because we didn't get to see everything or do everything that we're interested in. A couple more things we'd like to do, a couple more things we want to see. Definitely would use the Big Red Bus tour again. I think that this was like a 5.5 or 6 hour drive, so not really too bad either. Really easy to drive. The highway's good. No potholes, nothing like that. It was a nice getaway, and yeah, we had a good time. And of course, it was a thrill. It was an amazing thrill to be able to stop at Preciosa and buy stuff from the factory, from the place that I have been buying bead. I've been buying those beads since I learned how to bead. It's the same beads that all of us native crafters, native artists, that's what we use because that's what exists out there. There are Japanese seed beads. These are the Czech Republic seed beads. Seed beads used to be made in other places. They used to be made in France and Italy. Here is the sign right there saying welcome back to Germany. Oh no, it's right here. This is the blue sign right here that says welcome back to Germany. So we made it back. We also, like, knock on wood that this happens again, we had no traffic. We didn't even have to slow down for like a little tiny bit of traffic. We had no traffic. It was awesome. I think we had like some really good luck on our side because I think the day before there was tons of traffic because of the holiday. There's usually a lot of traffic around the holidays because everybody is like leaving town and going somewhere. And I don't know, we got lucky. It was such a good drive back. It was nice weather. We got to talk about all of the stuff that we bought. We got to just visit. It was a good trip. I hope that you and yours are happy and safe and doing well. I hope that any artwork you're working on is really just turning out in the way that you're interested in it turning out. Here is some shots of us just driving through Germany. We're still on the highway, still on, what is it called? The Autobahn. Driving through town. We made we made one stop or two stops, I think, for gas along the way. And then I just like to kind of see and show you what the city ends up looking like. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you and yours are safe and healthy.